What's up guys, and welcome to the 2024 Alfa Romeo Stelvio Quadrifoglio. This is a nearly $100,000 performance SUV, but does it have the flair of something like an Alfa Romeo 4C or a Giulia Quadrifoglio? That's what I want to find out. We're going to do a quick street drive here on the outskirts of Road America here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. We're at the 2024 Mama Spring Rally. They always host an excellent event. So let's get started here. On paper, this car is an absolute powerhouse. While it is a small crossover that weighs 4,300 pounds and has all-wheel drive, it's powered by the same engine as the Giulia Quadrifoglio. That means this has a 2.9-liter twin turbocharged V6 engine pushing out 505 horsepower and 443 pound-feet of torque. We have an 8-speed torque converter automatic transmission by ZF, massive column-mounted paddle shifters, very nice 3-spoke steering wheel with the engine start-stop button on the wheel itself. Interior feels very nice, less serious looking than something like a BMW X3M or X5M, for example. Quality might not be as nice. I can see a few little imperfections here in the stitching, but overall, I do feel like I'm sitting in a pretty high-end interior. This crossover starts at around $82,000, but you can get it very close to 100 grand with options. We have 14-way power adjustable seats as standard, adaptive cruise control with stop and go, as well as lane keep assist and lane departure warning. Exactly what you would want from a brand new crossover. Because at the end of the day, no one's really buying this as a pure track toy. And while it can handle the track, that's not its main reason for existence. And I say it can handle the track because I drove this on track at Road America yesterday, and I was really pleasantly surprised. Very dynamically fun car to drive. This all-wheel drive system is very rear biased, and I got the rear to kick out on 2 occasions over the course of 3/4 of a lap. First of all, let's bring this over into dynamic mode. We'll go manual for the transmission. That's some power delivery right there. Twin turbocharged, small displacement V6, relatively small displacement, 2.9 liters, means this thing has some turbo lag. You have to wait for those turbos to spool up, and then this engine just rushes towards its nearly 7,000 RPM red line. Very quick steering ratio is one of the first things you notice when you turn into a corner. It's a very Italian thing. The Ferraris I've driven have also had ultra quick steering ratios. When I drove this car on track yesterday, the steering actually worked really well. It loaded up really nicely in the corners, and the on-center feel is better than you'd expect for a 4,300 pound crossover with a high center of gravity. That being said, the high center of gravity is not helped by the fact that I'm just sitting so high. And I know that has nothing to do with the actual performance of the car, but I do wish I could get the seat a bit lower. And actually, if I put it into race mode here, that makes the adaptive dampers firmer as well. That's how I drove the car on track. Nice aggressive pops from the exhaust, more like farts in my opinion. And oh my goodness, the transmission now keeps the RPMs high to kind of combat that turbo lag down low. Now we have closer to instant throttle response, but I'd rather just have it in manual mode anyways. This is a crossover that actually feels sporty when you're not driving it aggressively at all. Because of the quick steering ratio, because of that aggressive exhaust note, and the fact that there is turbo lag, you feel like you're in something that wants to really get going. It's a car that wants to be pushed. It has that eagerness. Let's do a quick little first gear pull here. There's the turbo lag. Now, if you pull the upshift paddle a little too close to the red line, it does feel a little bit delayed on the upshift. Ultimately, this is not a dual clutch transmission. But yeah, you pull the paddle closer to 6,000 RPM and it'll shift right near that roughly 6,500 RPM red line. The brakes do feel a little bit tired after yesterday's hard track session. This is still a 4,300 pound vehicle. Let's not forget that fact. This car is not easy on consumables. It definitely does give me Giulia Quadrifoglio vibes. Although this is not the rear-wheel drive Hoonmobile that super sedan is, it does have some similar driving dynamics, like the super quick steering ratio. Obviously the engine is the same, and the rear drive biased dynamics. But in race mode, with the dampers and the stiffest setting, it is a little bit of a jiggly ride. Very low NVH. I'm not hearing any squeaks and rattles from the interior. Also minimal road noise, which is nice. But the suspension tuning definitely is a little bit harsh. So let's dial it back into dynamic mode. And all of a sudden it gets significantly more compliant. That's something I like to see with adaptive dampers. A very noticeable and significant difference between the modes. And this car has lots of mechanical grip, more than you would expect. And the suspension handles this high center of gravity and 4,300 pound curb weight surprisingly well. It's just a dynamically really fun to drive crossover. And if you really need this body style for your day-to-day commute, but you still want to have the fun of an Alfa Romeo, I can see why this thing would be appealing. I really can. But don't think that this is some kind of super practical CUV, because the rear headroom still is limited. The trunk space isn't all that big. This is still a very compact vehicle. So to me, it only really makes sense if you want the high ride height. Otherwise, just buy a Giulia Quadrifoglio. But what do you guys think? For almost $100,000, starting at 82 grand, does the Stelvio Quadrifoglio make any sort of sense? In what use case would you see this vehicle making more sense than, let's say, an X3M? Or better yet, getting a dedicated sports car combined with a regular SUV for about the same money? In my opinion, it's about the flair. It's about the driving thrills. I haven't driven an X3M, but I have driven an X6M, and if that vehicle is any indication, I would imagine the X3M to be technically super competent, probably even quicker around a track than this, but with less personality. The way this car steps out on throttle and the way it has this honestly excellent steering for a CUV and this hyper energetic engine that wants to be revved out to its red line, it's something that you don't see too often. In fact, this is the first SUV or CUV that has had that combination of traits that I've driven. But let me know what you think down in the comments. A shout out to the Midwest Automotive Media Association and to Alfa Romeo, and I'll see you guys in the next one.